All right, for whatever reason, ran into a little technical difficulty with trying to run the screencast in, the Freecodecamp working. We're going to get right back into it. Get my screen shared and get back to the lessons. So we were trying to work this style text inputs as form control. You can add the FA paper plane font awesome icon by doing this. Within your submit button, give your forms text input field the class of form control. Give your form submit button the class of BTN primary, so on and so forth. So we'll look at the full tilt directions here. We're down where we need to be on the code. Let's pull the whole screen out. So let's look at this. Give the submit button in your form the class BTN primary. So what we want to do is get in here. So we have the button element, but we want to give that button element the class. Hopefully this cooperates with me. The class equal to parentheses or quotation mark, excuse me, BTN space BTN dash primary. And let's look at our output here. And it did change that. It made the submit button blue because if we take out the primary, I'm sure it's a gray. So when we type in the word primary, it goes ahead and makes the button or the submit button blue. So we did that. Add a I class FA paper plane close I within your submit button. So we know better than to put this I class right in here. That's a no-no. And some of the wording that we're looking for is we want to add a I class. If you look, it already has its own opening and close tags. So it doesn't say this specifically, but I know this won't work if we just put it right in between like this class, BTN primary, and then the type, submit, yada, yada. What we want to do is we want to put the I as a nest right here where my cursor is. So I'm going to grab all this so we can avoid retyping it. And what we'll do is we'll just paste that right there. And it provides the submit with this little paper plane icon. It's kind of a neat little thing. And then give your text input in your form the class form control. Make sure your I element has a close tag. So all that's good. So now what we're looking for is the form element opening tag here. And what we need to do is just give it a class. So let's see, where's form? Form, action, this and that. So what we need to do is for here, and this now needs to have a class. And it will be equal to quotations, form dash control. And then we'll seal the quotes. And we'll, ooh, that was wrong. Sorry about that. That was not correct. Now it is correct. So you just need form class equals form control. Keep everything else the way it is. Just add it the way I did there. So now we've got the submit button the way it needs to be, and we added the class to the form up at the top of this form element here. So when we run the test, everything should pass. Give the text input in your, give the text input in your form the class. Wrong, Zach. Okay, so I apologize about that. That was the wrong place to put this form control class. So we're going to get that out of here. Got to carefully read. So that is alt. Okay, so what we're looking to do is the input within this form element, which is here. And now in this input here, we need to create a class and set it equal form control. And now we should have everything as it should be. So I apologize, it was in this input class form control type text. So it's applying to this element. Now this should pass. That was a really foolish move on my part, but should pass it, and we did. All right, let's keep rolling. Hopefully we can get through all this if there are no technical holdups and difficulties. So now we're going to do a line up form elements responsively with Bootstrap. Yeah, this certainly could benefit from that. Let's wait until the page loads. Line up the form elements responsively with Bootstrap. Now let's get your form input and your submission button on the same line. We'll do this the same way we have previously, by using a div element with the class row and this div element within it using the column extra small with an amount of rows class. Nest both your form's text input and submit button within a div with the class row. Nest your text within a div that has a class of column extra small 7. Nest your form button within a div that has a column extra small 5. This is the last challenge we'll do for our cat photo app. We hope you've enjoyed learning font awesome, Bootstrap, and responsive design. So we're not done, but we'll be done at least with the cat photo app. So this is, pretty straightforward. It embodies many of the things that we've been doing on other elements within the app. So again, we're looking at our input button, which is this guy, and then our submit. So nest your forms submission button input within a div that has a class row. So we're going to get up here on top of the input. Well, it would help if this actually went where I thought it was going to go. Okay, so we want to do div class equals quotation marks row. We want to finish this by doing a close for the tag, and then we want to nest the submit button, so we'll go down below the submit, and then we'll finish with a div close tag. So this first thing should be checked green now. So look here, that's checked. Nest your form text input in a div with the class column extra small 7. So what we'll do is we'll just grab this to avoid as much typing. We'll copy it, and we'll go up to the input, and we'll nest it with a div class equals, and we'll paste in the, wow, they don't have the quotes, which just makes no sense, but it is what it is. Okay, so close that. Now we need to go below our input here and make sure that we did close to finalize the next for this first element. All right, see, not to register, we'll do it again. Okay, so we've done this one. Let's run the test to make sure we're all good. We've got essentially 3 or 4 green lights lit. We need to now do this guy, which is the column extra small 5. I'll make sure I paste this. Okay, we'll copy it. and now we're looking specifically here, and we're going to do a div class equals quotations and paste column extra small 5. We'll ensure that that's closed up. And then remember, go below finish your nest, go below the submit button, and then throw in a div close. And make sure, whoop, I've got too many. Okay. So that should finalize that whole lesson. And it did. So we shall move on. We're going to get into kind of making another app now. It's still using Bootstrap, but it's not the cat photo app. It's something different, you know, still kind of the same premise, same thoughts. So change a Bootstrap header. Let's see what we're dealing with. Now let's build something from scratch to practice our HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap skills. We'll build a jQuery playground, which we'll soon put to use in our jQuery challenges. To start with, create an H3 element with the text jQuery playground. Color your H3 element with the text primary Bootstrap class and center it with the text center Bootstrap class. So we just have to take our time and remember some of the lessons that we've been through. So we're going to create this H3 element. And then what we want to do, let's go through the instructions. Add an H3 element to your page. Why don't we just finish the H3 element? But we know we need to add more to this H3 guy. Okay, so if we do add this H3 element, this first box should check. Actually, it checks 2 of them. Make sure that the H3 element is closed. So check 1 and 2 on our overall mission. But we're anything but done. Sorry, didn't pull the screen down that far. Your H3 element should be colored by applying the class text primary. So to apply a class, we're going to go within this open tag, and we're going to do class equals quotation marks text dash primary. Okay, and then it's asking us your H3 element should be centered by applying the class text center. So within these same quotes, we just simply make a space to add something into the class or another command into the class. And this time it's just simply the words text and center. So finally, we want to put some actual text into the H3 element itself. And they're asking us to do a little J and a query playground. Okay, so now we've got jQuery playground all in. That's as simple as it gets, and we run the test and everything should pass. I can't see a reason why it shouldn't. Okay, we did it. So we're building our app from the ground up. We got some text right up at the tip top here, and we'll see what else we need to do. So house our page within a Bootstrap container fluid div. This is a pretty common thing that you'll do to get everything kind of into one nice and neat way of programming it. Now let's make sure all the content on your page is mobile responsive. Let's nest your H3 element within a div element with the class container dash fluid. Okay, we go step by step. The reason that they've got the stuff that we did on line 2 is because we need to nest all of it in this div with a class which will be equal to the words container, dash container hyphen fluid. Okay, we aren't done for a number of reasons. For one, this isn't closed. Sorry. Element isn't closed, and this isn't nested. To finish the nest, we just need to close that div that we just created. So your div element should have the class container fluid. Div class container fluid. Make sure that your div has a closing tag. We did nest your H3 element inside the div. So here's the top nest, here's the bottom, and what do you know? H3 is inside. So all three things should be lit up and correct. Good. We were able to do it. So now we want to create a Bootstrap row. We did this in our cat photo app project before. I'm going to assume that this challenge will have a lot of the same attributes. So now we'll create a Bootstrap row for our inline element. Create a div element below the H3 tag with a class of row. So add a div element below your H3 element. Your div element should have a class of row. So just from where they position the cursor, we'll do div here, give it a class, and we'll make it equal to your row. And then we'll finish that like so. Your div or your row div should be nested inside the container fluid div. Okay, make sure your div element has a closing tag. So all I'm going to do now is just close it below by doing this. This is kind of odd. There's not a ton of instruction. This is going to pass, but it's just kind of like, you know, it doesn't explain kind of what we're doing. But anyway, this did fulfill the criteria. Everything should likely pass. Obviously, there's a lot more to come. Okay, so we'll keep rolling here. Now that we have a Bootstrap row, let's split it into two columns to house our elements. Create two div elements within your row, both with the class column extra small. So what we need to do, nest two div class equals column 6 elements within your div class row element. So within this guy here, we want to do a div, and you know, let's just make life really easy. Let's just copy theirs. And just make things like real simple. So we got one, and then we'll close this guy because it's saying you need two. We got one. But then all we would do, so we don't have to like recode a bunch of stuff, is just copy that and go right below and drop in another. So let's reread the directions. Nest two div class column extra small 6 elements within your div class row. Make sure your div elements have closing tags. So here's our div row, and here's its finish down here. And it wanted us to nest two div class column extra small 6s within. We've done all that. Should light it up and allow us to move forward. All right. So now we need to create Bootstrap wells. Wells are just kind of like containers within a container. It will make more sense as we do them. So Bootstrap has a class called well that can create a visual sense of depth for your columns. Nest one div element with the class well within each of your column extra small 6 div elements. Okay, so what we need to do is add a div element with the class well inside of your div element with the class column extra small 6. Okay, so let's see. It's not that this is challenging, it's just like reading it to make sure that you got this right. Add a div element with the class well inside of your div element with the class extra small 6. So we'll go in here, and what we'll do is create a div, let's see, div class equals location well, and we'll finish this with the close tag, and then we'll finish that with a div close. And now, again, similar to before, it wants it in both. Make sure I got everything copied here. So we'll copy the same thing and drop it inside of this guy. Seal it up. So now we put this div class well inside of this column extra small 6, both here and there. So we should fulfill that criteria, and we did. If you look here real quick, you've got 2 little wells. They're like little container spaces. Like it said, it gives it a sense of depth within your row. All right, what is our next challenge? It is add elements within your Bootstrap wells. Let's read and figure out how we get the elements within these wells. Okay, now we're several divs deep on each column of our row. This is deep as well. This is as deep as we'll need to go. Now we can add our button elements. Nest 3 button elements within your well divs. Okay, so we need to nest 3 button elements within each div element with the class well. So, sorry, we need to start up on line 7. What we'll do is we'll jump in and we'll create a button element. This is just like my machine's really responding slowly, so there's a lot of lag. I do apologize. We created a button element, and the button, okay, so we need 3 of those within each of the well. Your button, okay. Nest 3 button elements within each div element with the class well. Okay, so I'm just thinking that it's a button element where you got this button close. I don't think that the button itself has a class. It's just saying within the div that has the class as well. So there's 1, but remember we need 3 of these. So we'll copy, keep dropping them in. There's 2. And there's 3. Okay, so we got those 3 buttons there. And I still have this kind of fresh and copied. So this one will do 1, 2, 3. I just pasted them in. And again, clean it up. There's a ton of space that we've created. This should fulfill everything unless I skip something. So nest 3 button elements within each of your div elements with the class row. So it's within this div class that has the well div that has the class of well. So we got 1, 2, 3 there, and 1, 2, 3 there. Make sure all your buttons have a close tag. But yes, they all do. All right, we were able to do it. Okay, so now we want to apply the default Bootstrap button style to these new buttons that we created in the web. So once this renders out, we'll go over. Bootstrap has another button class called BTN default. Apply the BTN and BTN default classes to each of your button elements. So again, it's going to be really pointless once we do this first one, to like write out all the code. So I'm going to suggest a copy paste. But let's get the first template in. So button class equals BTN. Whoa, what did I miss? Quotation marks. BTN and then space BTN dash default. So that, if you look over here, it actually created kind of like this little button thing. What we want to do, because boy, that would just take forever, is copy this and then paste over these guys. I think I inadvertently eliminated one of them, so make sure you have 3. Just kind of take these guys out and just put in 3 new ones just so nothing gets out of whack. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Everything's looking good, and we should be able to pass. Yes. Okay. Again, nothing ultra complicated, but if you get off to a poor start on these things, you will certainly just be running into a tremendous amount of errors. So make sure that you're constantly trying to run your test and getting some passes if the directions are real long. You don't want to, at the end, figure out you made a mistake really early on. But some of these are pretty short. Not every class needs to have a corresponding CSS. Sometimes we create classes just for the purpose of selecting these items or these elements more easily using jQuery. Give each of your button elements the class target. So now we need to create another thing within the class. We've already got a class, right? So apply the target class to each of your buttons. So the simplest way, again, to do this is just create a space and put in the word target. Okay, and yes, we can just copy the word target and come in and drop it in to the class that we've created. So once we have this in all 6, let's see if it likes this or not. Yep, it did. So it's just as easy as adding the word target into the class. So add btn default and then target as the class names. Okay, now we need to add an ID attribute to the Bootstrap elements. And we know IDs in HTML are just like simply writing the word ID and making it equal to something, just like we would write a class and make it equal to something in quotes. Recall that in addition to class attributes, you can give each element an ID attribute. Each ID must be unique to specify to a specific element and used only once per page. Let's give a unique ID to each of our div elements of class well. Remember that you can give an element an ID like this, div class equals XYZ, and then an ID equals XYZ. So give the well on the left ID, give the well on the left the ID of left well. Give the well on the right the ID of right well. So essentially this one, this well here, we need to give the idea of left well. This one will give the idea of right well. So give your left well the ID of left well. So right now, we've got div class well. What we need to do is have div class well ID equals quotation left dash well. Okay, so there's that guy. And we need to come down here and go ID equals quotation right dash well. So that was relatively simple. Let's verify that that was all. That's all we needed to do. So we needed to do the div class well, but this is our left well, and this is our right well. Let's run the test. Probably should have run the test after we did the left well, just to make sure it was working, but it did. You know, don't go too fast. Obviously, it's just 2 things, so it's not a lot of correcting if you make a mistake, but better to test early than late. So now we're going to do label Bootstrap wells. We labeled them kind of on the surface, but we're going to get deeper. For the sake of clarity, let's label both of our wells with their IDs. Above your left well, inside the column extra small 6 div element, add a H4 element with the text hash left dash well. Above your right, same thing. So what we'll do is just get this byte by byte and try to pass the test, as I've been mentioning, a little more slowly than just going through. Add an H4 element to each of your div class column extra small 6. So what we're looking to do is that drop in right here. We want to throw in a div class equals, and then this H4 needs to be a pound. Oh, sorry, pound left dash well. Okay, and then we'll finish. So we did the left well. Let's see if any test will pass that. Not yet. That's okay. We're not going to fret it. Okay, so one H4 element should have the text left well. One H4 element should have the text right well. Okay, so add an H4 element to each of here. I see why this is wrong already. So it's not a div. I don't know why I did that. And that's not right. So sorry, it's an H4. Getting too complex for our own good. So we need an H4 here, and it's just pure text. We'll go pound sign and then left dash well. Okay, and then we'll close the H4 like this. Okay, so now let's run a test and see if anything checks. So we got that. Now we want to close some of the space here. Now we want to go below here and do the same thing. We want to add an H4 element with the pound right dash well. We want to seal up that H4 with a close tag, H4. And that is now right. We'll take that space out that we created. And now we've got left well, right well, and all tests should pass. That's on to our next endeavor. So now we've got things kind of labeled out. It's looking organized, at least. We're getting some things in place. It's, nice little skeleton for doing a project. This is give each element a unique ID. So we will also want to be able to use jQuery to target each button by its unique ID. Give each of your button, we will also want to use jQuery to target each button by a unique ID. Give each of your buttons a unique ID, starting with target 1 and ending with target 6. Make sure that target 1 to 3 are in the left well and targets 4 to 6 are in the right well. Makes sense. One button element should have the target ID 1. So let's see. Just if we can get all this stuff, if we can just get one right, that would be great. Like, so we do this first one correct, we know we're rolling. So let's get in this first button here, do an ID equal to locations target 1. And let's just see with that. Now, okay, so one button should have the target 1 as an ID. So if we run this, this should go green. It did. So now what we have to do is take the same principle of target 1 and apply it down the line. So add a space, drop in. And we're going to change these later. Obviously, this is target 1, this is target 2, target 3, target 4, target 5, target 6, target 7. I see. I inadvertently have, for whatever reason, an extra thing in here. I do not know how or why, but I did. There should just be 6. Okay. So anyway, moving on. There's 3. I must be copying way more than what I need to. Let's go back. Because all I really needed is just this ID target. For a reason really doesn't like that because it's missing. Okay. All right, let me make sure I get everything this time. Okay, copy again, continue to we will not be done with this yet. So this first one's 1, but we need to do these in just kind of standard numeric order. That's a 2. So this would be, of course, 3. And let's just test that we get this right. Okay, we got 3 greens. Now, of course, this needs to be 4, 5, 6, and we should be perfect. 4, 5, and 6. Okay. If we look over at the instructions, it's just basically making sure that we have targets 1 through 6. This should light up. We got everything really neatly organized. We still have more work to do, but everything's really kind of nice and neat, and just makes a great foundation to do more dynamic and interesting things. Okay, so now let's label Bootstrap buttons. Just like we labeled our wells, we want to label our buttons. Give each of your button elements text that corresponds to its ID's selector. Give your button element within the ID target 1 the text target 1. So now what we're going to do is just literally put in text. Okay, so give your button element within the ID target 1 the text target 1. So this is where we would put in text. We want to go target and number 1. And if you look over here at our output, it has the word target 1. We want to then copy this just so we can work more quickly and put this there and put this there. So if you look, what I now have is I have target 1 for this button number 1. I'll have target 2, and it should show up right here. Target 2. I'll have target 3. And now this will be target number 3. And then that same thought, I need to, again, add the text for 4, 5, 6. So here's target 4. Here is target 5, or here will be target 5. And the last one will get this lesson done since it was just simply adding text. And 6. So now I have left well, right well, and I have targets 1 through 6, just so I can like really accurately pinpoint which element I'm working with. And the instructions were just to add the text 1 through 6, which we did. And this should pass. It was really not a great idea to not test the first one. You should always test as you go and make sure that you're satisfying the instructions. I don't know if that just didn't run or what's happening. Hopefully this didn't freeze. This is correct. Um, so we'll see if there's an issue or not. Let me reread. Give your button element with the ID target 1 the text. Give your button element with the ID target 1 the text. Target 1. Oh, I see. Give your button element with the ID target 1 the text pound target 1. So it's missing the pound sign. That's kind of weird that it just won't let you pass with that text, but it's missing these pounds. So we'll go back and add the pound sign. And before I do 100 things, why don't I check to make sure 3 of the things are right? I got 3 of the things right, so I just know that I need to add pounds here. This will now pass the lesson once I add this pound in on target 6. Okay, make sure you're reading more carefully than I was. So we got pound 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that will pass those tests. Okay, now we got that passed. We got to make sure even your text is right. But that helps you stay accurate, which is important, because when you're inaccurate, the organization isn't quite right. It makes things a lot more difficult. Use comments to clarify code. So, obviously, bigger projects will require more than one person to work on the code. So it's good to let people know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So if they need to work on something, they can quickly understand what you were doing. When we start using jQuery, we will modify HTML elements without needing to actually change them in HTML. Let's make sure that everyone knows that they shouldn't actually modify any of the code directly. Remember, you can start a comment with the open exclamation point dash dash and end with dash dash close tag. Add a comment at the top of your HTML that says only changes above this line. So we'll do that in just a second. Let's see if there's anything else that we need to do. Okay, start your comment with open exclamation point dash dash at the top of the HTML. So we're going to go open exclamation dash dash. Let's just check that first thing just to make sure we're all good. And the first box is right, but unfortunately we've commented out everything. Your comment should have the text this. Let's copy paste for speed's sake. Go back in here, drop in that comment, and then we'll close it by going dash dash with our close tag. And let's see if there's anything else. You should have the same number of comment openers and closers. So we got everything the way it should be there. All right, good. Not hard, just a quick comment, but again, organization and being able to do things where you're conveying your message to other people is very, very important. Okay, it looks like we've done the Bootstrap exercises. Let me just look at the math real quick. Hopefully this gets us done with the Bootstrap piece, unless this is another exercise that is just really, really slowly loading, which wouldn't be sudden. Maybe the map will come up. I decided to. Okay. Let's see. So Bootstrap. And again, the Bootstrap map is opening really slow. I think that we did all the Bootstrap exercises. If commenting out was the last thing, then we're good. Yep, use comment to clarify. So now we're on gearing up. you can look through this. It's just looking at different things you can read to understand more about Freecodecamp and just things related to programming. Definitely not any tasks that are related to code, but just still interesting resources. So let me jump back to Hangout. Kind of wrap up here. So let's stop sharing the screen. All right, so that's all Bootstrap. Have this done by Monday, and we'll move on to jQuery on Monday. Thanks a lot.